Hello, welcome to my new player guide to World of Warcraft. I want to get this out of the way right now. You have to pick up the game first and know that it is a subscription-based game and it's $15 a month. There's also a new expansion coming out, so I would recommend picking that up too if you like the game. Now, if you do pick up the expansion, it does come with a level up token. Now, I wouldn't recommend using the level up token because it makes you feel like you have less growth in your character and you'll probably drop the game in a couple days. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about if you have friends playing the game. You'll definitely want to get a hold of some of your friends, see what faction they are, because you don't want to be on the opposite faction because you won't be able to play with them. I would also recommend going on the same realm as your friends because if not, you won't be able to do the higher tier endgame content. Your biggest choice after you choose your realm is what faction you want to play on, and this is very dependent on your friends and what faction they are playing if you want to play with them. But if you don't have friends, go with whichever one you feel. As a side note, if you're going into WoW on your own, look up what good raiding realms there are for your faction, because you don't want to be going into a dead server or a server that's very heavily populated on the opposite faction. But seriously, pick a racing class that you like and can see yourself playing for hundreds of hours, because most likely you will if you like what you choose. And don't go with the meta class or a race just because of its racials, because that doesn't matter. I do have a video on this, and if you want more information on how I feel about the races and classes, please give it a watch. But definitely go with what you like. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's start talking about the game. I would say start out like it's any other game. Just go in, do some quests, learn your rotation, get the feel of it. It's pretty easy to get the feel of it once you get the basics down. And after you do that, I'd recommend you download the Twitch app. Not because I stream on it, but because you want to download some add-ons for WoW. At the top of it, there's a mod selection where you select it and then you select World of Warcraft from there. And as a disclaimer, you'll have to go through a drop-down menu if you have Retail and Classic because they both take separate add-ons. To get the add-ons, you have to go through the Get More add-ons and then you'll be fine from there. There are 4 add-ons that I recommend a newer player to get though. These add-ons don't take any type of configuration and just make the game experience much more smoother. The 4 I recommend are Deadly Boss Mods, GTFO, Pawn, and Scrap. DBM is good for whenever you do endgame content such as raids or higher tier dungeons. What it does is it alerts you whenever a boss is about to do a high damage ability and helps you figure out what to do about it. GTFO, it helps you move out of the way of an enemy AoE by putting a siren in your ear until you're out of it. Pawn is really good though. It tells you if a piece of armor that you pick up is an upgrade from what you currently have equipped. And lastly, Scrap is my favorite quality of life add-on. It adds a button to sell all your junk in your inventory without selling something important. Now let's talk about talents. I would recommend you look at some build guide websites such as Icy Veins or Noxic, which I will link both in the description below. Both are excellent at helping you figure out which talents you should choose and what rotations you should use. Following a rotation will get you the most DPS out of your character if it's followed correctly. Now I want to talk about making the game a little bit easier by adding more buttons on the screen. Now, it might be overwhelming at first, but you'll see what I mean. But before you add the buttons, you want to go into your interface and turn on auto loot, because what this does is whenever you loot an enemy, instead of clicking through every item, it just auto loots it all for you. Now let's get into the extra buttons. What you want to do is you want to go into your action bars menu and check them all because it's really important to have a lot of buttons on screen. Again, it's going to be overwhelming at first, but you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean by having like your hearth on the side and then having some extra abilities up top. It's really nice to have. Now that you have the extra buttons on screen, I'm going to teach you about keybinds to use those extra buttons. Now you go into the keybinding menu, and the keybinds I like to change are under the multi-action bar, and they go in order from left to right on top of your main action bar. In order from top to bottom, my preferred keybinds are F, R, Q, E, G, Shift +1, all the way to Shift +5. And that gives me more than enough buttons to work with at endgame. And I also recommend to turn A and D to strafing instead of turning under movement keys in key bindings. But before you get any further into the game, I would recommend you try to make some gold, just so you can buy some bigger bags so you don't have to keep going back to a vendor, and so you can buy some mounts and some mount speeds. For this, I would recommend my gold making guide for noobs, which I will leave in the card up there and in the description description below. But while you're leveling, definitely use the adventure guide. What it does is it shows you where you could also level up instead of your current area if you want to change up the scenery a little bit. It helps leveling not seem as boring if you're in the same spot for a long period of time. It'll also show you where to go next after you hit the higher levels after the classic leveling, because the classic leveling will not give you enough XP once you hit a certain level. Also get used to doing dungeons because it'll help you learn how to do the end game a little bit better, and it'll also give you better gear than quest rewards or the ones that drop off of mobs in the world. And if you're looking for something that's more player versus player oriented, I would definitely recommend Battlegrounds because they are super fun and probably my favorite PvP content in any MMO. But if you have any more tips, leave them in the comments and I'll make another video about them. Thanks for watching. I hope this guide helps, but until next time, take care and stay safe.